this time it really is a good afternoon. I am the late Susan Feldman. Kind of lost the phone this morning and, checking the planets. There's a lot of things going on, which is why we have our guest today is Jeff Walters, who is a very well-known astrologer and good friend of mine. And we are going to talk to him about what's going on with the planets. And so I just wanted to remind everybody that, of course, people will say, what's your sun sign? Some people don't believe this stuff at all. But I sort of feel like, if the planets have gravitational pull or their energy affects other planets, like when the sun has a sunburst, it alters our electronic system. Even the computers will go down. There'll be glitches in the grid, the electricity grid. And yet nobody ever thinks that maybe this might also affect humans. Anyway, it's very coincidental and very funny. Anyway, we are going to be talking to Jeff in a minute. But I also wanted to remind you that if you're looking for any office space, please consider looking at Las Vegas business centers. They are at www.lasvegasbusinesscenters.com. They have commercial and industrial properties at great rates and excellent service. So if you're interested in renting any kind of office space, give them a call at 702-948-5000. And you can ask for Mike or Jen. They have properties in Henderson, the Southwest Valley, the Southeast Valley, and the Northwest. One of their properties at 800 North Rainbow, which is a fabulous location because it's so easy to get to. It's right at the 95 and the Rainbow Curve. A little bit north of that, like Rainbow and Washington. So it's very easy to get to. So if you're looking for office space, don't forget LasVegasBusinessCenters.com. Yay! So is Jeff on the line?
I be here.
Aye, Captain. I should whistle. How do you do it when you whistle a captain aboard a ship? Okay.
Like that.
Good.
Like that anyway.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me for a nooner.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me over for a nooner, darling.
Well, listen, I am curious to know what is what is your, you have a very interesting background. I want all my listeners to get to know who you are. You are married to my...
Jessica Miller, the fabulous Reiki master of all Reiki master.
Yes. So, that's how I met Jeff. And Jeff is, tell me about how you started learning astrology.
Well... I actually don't know when I started learning astrology, to be honest.
Before you were even born?
More or less. I'm a fourth-generation astrologer.
Interesting.
I've been involved in the particular art, well, like I said, since I was in the womb.
Yes.
They were already doing charts and speculation on me before I even came out.
Now, do you think that helped them or helped them raise you? But I don't know. Sometimes I know my children's charts, and sometimes I just have to throw up my hands because it's just sort of an unworkable situation. But that's kind of helpful, though, if you know that, don't you think?
It's actually, now you're getting into how I started doing astrology.
Oh, okay. Well, tell me how you got into doing astrology.
Pretty much from what you just said you did. Growing up in astrology with other astrologers doesn't necessarily mean you know anything about it.
Okay.
So here's the thing. The trouble with astrology in many cases, as far as I've noticed, is astrologers.
Oh, well, right, because it is an interpretation.
Well, it's more than that. And it's really, as far as I'm concerned, it's a misplaced science. Astrology is actually that funny thing that's in the confluence between shall we say, physics and psychology.
Okay.
In between the two. So where they overlap, that little place is astrology. And to explain that a little bit more, I have a theory about astrology. And astrology is actually the study of how physics, shall we say, or at least shall we say, the study of how gravity affects consciousness.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's the basically astrology in a nutshell, the simplest explanation I can give you. So essentially everything else is trying to figure out, shall we say, the gravity of the situation.
Okay. No pun intended.
Indeed. Or, if you like, absolutely intended. But the thing being, which I think puns are just little forms of enlightenment. At any rate.
That's a good one.
Like little pillows of enlightenment that you can land on more lightly rather than hitting hard. At any rate, here's the point. So with my little pun pillows, what we do with astrology is we basically understand, or the understanding of how the directions you're pulled in, what kind of pulls you in one direction or another, and the environment therein that you are born into, that kind of thing. The other thing that's difficult about astrology is astrology, and especially the way that I do it, is I don't do fatalistic astrology. As my little phrase is, certainties for suckers. Okay?
Okay.
In fact, there's a thing in physics called the uncertainty principle, which basically means that everything has a probability and a possibility, but if you start to lay things down and say, that's the way things are, pretty soon you're probably going to be wrong somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, everything's uncertain, everything's all subject to chance, but you can figure out probabilities. In other words, statistically, they'll go this way or the other, that kind of thing.
I
you
call
can
it,
figure out which direction things are going.
yeah, I call it,
especially when you're talking in physics.
I
Yeah.
call it the way the wind's blowing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Don't spit in the wind and use the
Yeah.
wind or use the energy to catapult you to where you want to go.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Exactly. And watch out for black holes. That kind of thing. Because they can really be a drag. You know what I mean?
It would be a drag.
So the whole point is that astrology gives you a map of where those little black holes are, where your potholes in life are, and also where the mountains are that you can go and climb to find a better view, and where the better trails are to climb that mountain. You know how to read the map, which is what I do a little bit differently than most astrologers. Astrologers every once in a while say it's a map of consciousness and all this kind of stuff. In my case, it is a map. It's a real map.
Well,
I actually take the planets and turn them into ships, and the houses become the house seas, and then, yes, the jokes and the puns keep going from there. So.
it's a great system. I love how it really, because it really brought down how to look at a chart. An astrological chart is nothing more, an astrological chart is basically an astrological map.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you've got it right there, right on the nose. So the thing is that, you need to know, I always like looking, when people are asking me, about their charts, I always look at two planets in their chart. One is Saturn and one is Jupiter.
Right.
And what houses they're in. And
your cargo ship and your cruise ship. Those are your favorite ships, eh?
Well, it's so you kind of think, how can I make that work? And it really made it easy for me to say, well, if I have a luxury liner on a cruise ship, I need a cargo ship behind me to keep supplying the party. In my thinking.
You might, but cruise ships don't always work well in shipping lanes for freighters.
Well, yes.
Kind of like
choppy
passenger
waters.
trains on a freight line, which we all know from Amtrak can be a pain in the arse.
Yes.
I think I can say that on radio.
Yes. Hey, listen, before I forget, can you tell me about where can our listeners hear you or find you?
Right now we're still working on kind of doing a little bit of a radio thing for ourselves as well. But the best way to find me right now, and to learn both about me and any other radio shows I might be doing or listening to me is through both my website and my wife's site. So right now, actually, one of the best ways is actually going through my wife's site, actually, right now, while we're busy building the Celestial Seas and revamping it, because we've been doing a lot of things. We kind of had it in the beta stage for a while. As they say, we're always building a site.
Well,
best way to reach me is at my wife's site at ReikiMastery.com.
Okay, and that's ReikiMastery.com for our listeners.
Yep.
And I actually did some homework, and I went to your website, and it looks great. So I encourage my listeners to even check out Reiki Mastery, but also go to, what is it, Celestial Seas?
Yes, it has to have a "the" in front of it, so it's thecelestialseas.com.
The Celestial Seas. Very nice. I'm so excited. I mean, I always love talking to you. So anyway, let's continue on with, let's see, we were talking about cargo ships and...
Sure. Let me help people out getting to the Celestial Seas first, and then I'll tell them about the cargo ships real quick, because I just want to make sure that you can get in, because I wanted to let them know that if they do go to the site, they can actually make a map of their very own for free.
Oh, cool.
Yes,
okay.
You can pirate your own map from me. I'm a terrible pirate, and that's why.
Arg.
I give the maps away for free. I told you I was good. At any rate, there you go. So if they have their birth date, their birth time, of course, which are your coordinates you see, and the location where they're born, they should be able to make a fine map for themselves. And yes, as you were pointing out, the maps that I do of the Celestial Seas, and as we were talking about earlier, growing up in a family of astrologers made me a little cuckoo. So what I started to do is do it my own way. Being the Aries that I am, we're known for being pioneers. I decided to do it my own way, and I've kind of pioneered a form of astrology that is my very own. It is unique, and it actually uses ships and seas and captains as the signs, and houses are the house seas, and the ships are the planets. And that way, also the other thing that does that astrology normally doesn't give you is two things. One, it's a theme, which astrology doesn't have. It's more like trying to read an encyclopedia when you rip all the pages out, throw them in the middle of the room, and say, find something for me. That's kind of how astrology is usually taught and usually works. Or doesn't work, as the case may be. You've got tons of information, but no way to categorize it or place it. In particular, because most astrology doesn't really even deal very well with a third of how you do a chart in the first place. And that third is actually about the houses, which I call the house seas, of course. And the houses really indicate behavior in the chart. And that's really where I think my system excels all the other kinds of astrology that you'll find out there, is that instead of just leaving the houses blank and unmarked and saying, oh, these houses relate to this sign or that, depending on their position, my chart actually tells you exactly what the houses mean, and I actually have pictures. Yes, it's an illuminated chart of all the lands and seas that each house sea represents. For instance, the sacrifices of the first house, and of course the promises of the seventh, and the romances of the fifth, and the progressives of the 11th, and all of that, along with the Bay of the Gods and the Bay of Kings, and the promises having the Bay of Sins, opposite the Bay of Saints, which gives you more of an illumination of how the chart's really working and what kind of person you're really dealing with when you see their planets in each of these houses and you understand how they're really going to behave, even more so than their sign, which most people are very much used to doing. They're used to understanding the sun signs, and then they kind of dismiss everything else or kind of poke around with the planets a little bit, and they don't really understand how they work when they're in each house. And that's where I think, shall we say, my system excels the other forms of how astrology is interpreted and taught, because I really give it a greater dimension to the chart reading beyond just simply the signs and planets. I actually make the houses understandable. And the important thing, like I said, there's two things that I think I really do better, is I provide a theme, number one, and number two, I provide distinction between a house, a planet, and a sign. So a sign is a captain, and a captain is not a ship, which is a planet, and a ship is not a sea, which is a house. And there are real distinctions between them, and you can see how they all work together, obviously, from the nautical perspective that I'm providing with this. But you also can understand not only how they overlap, but how they're distinct, how they are not actually each other. A captain is not a sea, and a sea is not a ship, that kind of thing.
Right.
Whereas in regular astrology, the way you're usually taught is there's a lot of overlap between those. And they say, oh, they're related to each other, they're like each other, but that's where it stops, and you get no distinction between how they're alike and how they're not alike, which is, I think, again, what my system actually provides is a greater sense of clarity for saying it's like this, but it's not like that, and it's not like that either, and it's not like this, which is not what regular practice and teaching of astrology does, is it says, no, it's like this and like that over there. Oh, yeah, and it's maybe a little bit like this, and it's kind of filial to that. And then pretty soon what you get is it's like trying to paint a painting by putting all of your colored paints in one spot. Pretty soon you get mud.
Oh, yeah,
and
that's
there's no
true.
clarity. And there's no distinction. And I think, unfortunately, again, that's why I started doing astrology. And kind of like what you said at the very beginning of the interview here was that, oh my, what do? You start looking at all these charts, and then pretty soon you're filled with information, but no clarity. And you just throw your hands up and go, oh, God, forget it. I'm tired. I can't do it. It's driving me nuts.
And not only that, but, once you get a natal chart, which is basically the snapshot of, where the planets were when you decided to enter this world, as astrologers say.
And a marvelous way of describing it. Thank you.
Then you also, you have to see how the transiting planets, the solar chart. How
the ships that pass in the night.
Yes. So, the shipping lanes get pretty darn busy on the celestial seas.
Yes, they do.
You're going to need a satellite
that's where
or
you
something.
can go nuts just doing regular astrology because you get so much information, all these ships that keep passing you, and you're like going, well, when do I ever get to land on one and get somewhere?
Oh, seriously. I sort of feel like sometimes I look at a chart and I just sort of, like you said, throw up your hands and you just say, oh, those damn cosmic rocks.
Exactly. Because you don't really get anywhere to go with them. There's nothing to connect you to them. They pass you by. You never really get on the deck, much less the dock.
But it does give you a map of where to start, and that's what I like about astrology. Sometimes, most of the times, it helps to center and ground people. Hey, listen, Jeff, I need to break and take. We need to take a break right now, and go get something to drink and come on back. And we will talk to you later. I mean, in a few minutes. Come on back, everybody. Oh my gosh, we have such a busy, busy day. I really need to talk more about the planets, but on our line right now is Mary Jo in the Know. Hey, Mary Jo.
Hi, Susan.
Hey, sister.
Hey, Pasta.
How you doing?
How you doing? I'm doing great. It's beautiful here in New Jersey. 52 degrees and sunny and windy as all heck.
Really?
Yeah, it's gorgeous out.
No, is there any snow?
No snow. I think we're over the hump.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's springtime, but you never know because Mother Nature is unpredictable.
You got that right. It's about as predictable as the damn cosmic rocks. How was
Don't make no damn sense.
How was your Easter, my dear?
It was great. I had a great Easter. My dad came to visit, spent it with my family.
Dr.
And
Harry,
we
one of
had
our
a
past
terrific,
guests.
Yeah, we had a terrific day.
Great. So what else is going on?
Well,
How,
I am just trying my best to get tickets to Hamilton because, Mary Jo in the know will not take no for an answer. So I am still entering the lottery every day. So that means if I get a ticket, I have a 2.5-hour window, and I could scoot over to Manhattan. Sweet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I will be there as long as I.
So you're on call. You're on call.
I'm on call. Yeah, for an 8 o'clock
gosh.
show, and as long as I leave by 5, I'm good.
Oh,
So-
honey, I'd go into Manhattan at 9 o'clock in the morning just so I can, just to make sure that I'm there. I'm not
know
gonna
you. I know
listen.
you would.
I don't trust the Lincoln Tunnel.
Lincoln Tunnel.
That is a wild thing. If anyone has ever been to New York and you've gone to the Lincoln Tunnel, it's unbelievable. It's like this whirling dervish and all these lanes come together, and I'm really surprised that there aren't more accidents.
It's organized chaos because everyone has the same goal to get in, and people just kind of get into the groove of letting
Everybody take their turn.
Everybody take their turn. Yes.
Oh my good Lord. Oh
Unless
my
you're
good
from
Lord.
Vegas, and then you go. No, I go. No, you go.
No, if you're
I
from
go.
Vegas, you take a limousine. Okay? That's what you do. You say, Mary Jo, get in the car. Please.
But yeah, it's spring break right now, so my kids are. I've just got off my shift, and I'm just holding my breath until I get home because I gave everyone a chore list, and this will be the test of how 2 teenage girls bond and find their relationship and how it works
and step
without
up.
any grown-ups around. Yeah.
And step up. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
at a certain point, I think a lot of problems, teenagers feel disenfranchised from their family because they don't participate in some sort of household chore, whether that be feeding the cat or, folding the clothes or, just loading the dishwasher.
Yes.
Something simple as that. That's their job. And to see, the, what is it? The effect?
Absolutely.
The effect of lack of action to do your work. No one's going to do it for you. You've got to do it for yourself.
And appreciation of what it does take to keep a household running.
Oh, yeah. I believe
priceless.
I really believe that every young person should have some sort of job just to get the feel of, even, I did babysitting. And just to get the feel of, you really have a lot of control over whether or not your business is going to survive or not.
And being reliable.
And responsible.
That sense of
Absolutely.
responsibility and reliability is really good for the self-esteem as well, because it takes a village.
And even if your child is not very motivated, if you go to a legitimate astrologer and have your child's chart looked at, you can it's a great way of even looking and finding, the potholes in your child's life, or where they excel and where they don't excel.
And which chores can be assigned to the child that that will help them succeed at the end of the day and
Right.
feeling productive.
Absolutely. And also finding out, helping children to find out, what they like and what motivates them, or, because ultimately, I always encourage people to get a job doing what they love. Because then it's not a job.
Not work.
It's not work. So, and if your child doesn't know what they like to do, then, that's kind of making it harder for them. So anyway, that's one benefit of astrology. And anyway, That's that.
So when's the next retrograde?
Oh, I don't know. Let us ask. Hang on a second. Let's go and ask Jeff. Jeff, are you there?
Oh, yeah. I be here.
Jeff, tell us. I have Mary Jo in the know. Another one of Jessica's Kyoto students, Karama students. And she was asking when the next Mercury retrograde was going to be.
The next Mercury retrograde. Oh, dear. Well, here's the thing. I'm a bit away from my astrological calendar at the moment. And as far as I know, currently we're direct. Now, here's the thing about Mercury retrograde. They happen fairly often, as you well know.
Yes.
They happen about 3 times a year. And Mercury tends to change a sign once every 3 weeks. So that does not mean that during signs changing that it's going retrograde, but it will go retrograde. Like I said, basically once every other quarter, that kind of thing. So kind of in between there.
My
as far as I know, it is going retrograde as far as I can tell, as I remember looking at my calendar last,
at
the end of next month.
Okay.
End of April.
End of April. I could call back and confirm that, but there you go.
I seem to remember something about that.
Yeah.
It's good that it's after tax season.
Yes, thank goodness. Hallelujah. There you go. So
always a
sometimes
positive.
Work for you, and sometimes they don't.
Always look at the bright side.
Great for me because I was bored on one. That's my briar patch.
Oh, well,
So when everybody's moaning about the Mercury retrograde, I'm going, "Hey, what's the problem, man? It's cool."
Well, I have a Gemini ascendant, and some planets in Virgo, and yeah, it really sucks to be me because I always feel it. I mean, I can feel it like the week before it starts. That's why I'm always
can. Yeah, very much so with that kind of a setup.
Yeah, so I have to really be very careful to always be in the golden mean, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because,
there you go.
I mean, I do plan my projects around retrogrades. If it's a retrograde coming up, that's usually when I kind of have, stored up all my nuts, so to speak.
Good thing.
That's when I go visit Mary Jo.
Yeah.
That's the best thing to do on a retrograde, actually, as a matter of fact.
Really?
Is be old friends. Because that's what a retrograde
And why is
does.
that?
It usually gives you the opportunity, because of the retrograde itself. Retrogrades are often considered karmic. And really the reason why they're considered karmic is because they deal with things of the past. And again, it is kind of like a time warp astrologically, because what you've done is you're retracing the steps that the planet had already made, and you're going backwards through them. That's the retrograde thing. So meeting with anybody from your history, old friends, going over old documents, double-checking things you've done before, those are things you should do during a retrograde. And the retrograde will help you to do those things. It's like going back and forth, crossing all the, dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. That's the time to do that. The thing not to do during a retrograde is start anything new, because this is not the time for things that are new.
Yeah.
It's not the time to proceed forward with whatever. It's the time to go back and check your work. That's what a retrograde's for. So now you know how to use a retrograde instead of curse the wind.
Exactly.
Say, okay?
My cell phone dies. There's something with my car. I can't find something. And then after the retrograde, lo and behold, voila.
It turns up.
It turns up. So, and of course, feng shuiing my house helps.
Yes, that does help, because that's going back over things. That's dealing with stuff you've had before. So that's perfect.
That's a good time to clean out your closet.
Yeah. What's that?
It's a good time to clean out your closet or check or do your files.
That is the best thing to do on a retrograde. Absolutely. And the retrograde will help you to find things you lost before. If you it's like, oh my God, I lost the thing, I lost it forever. Yeah. On a retrograde, you'll find it. That's the time to go looking. Not while it's direct. When it's retrograde, go looking for that lost thing on a retrograde. You'll probably find it.
Wow.
That's when it'll help you. Okay.
See, this is why it's great to consult an astrologer.
Yeah.
Do you know? Oh, this is another interesting thing. I saw something on Globe Trekker on PBS last Sunday, and this
Oh, yeah.
woman was in India, and she wanted to go buy some jewelry. But in India, or in this particular town, before you can buy a jewel, you have to go to an astrologer.
Yes. Yes. There are gemstones for each sign, and minerals and metals for each sign. In fact, that's all going in my book. In fact, I just finished a chapter on all of that. And the Hindu beliefs and Jyotish astrology, which is often called Vedic astrology, it's actually called Jyotish, is the way that the Hindus do astrology. And they take into account all kinds of things in your environment that are related to the planets and your sign and how they work. You not only have a sign for each mineral and gemstone, you have a sign for each part and area of the body as well. And Hippocrates himself actually said that there was no physician worth his salt that didn't know something about astrology. So you had to be a good astrologer before you could become a good physician. So those
that's the quote.
Physicians that are practicing medicine these days that don't know astrology are not following through with their Hippocratic oath.
Well, then there's that.
Just saying.
But, it was very interesting, how this all ties in. And, this stuff is ancient. Astrology has been studied in all continents, all civilizations.
All religions have a cosmology of their own, and that is an astrology. Definitely.
Yeah. It's very
interesting.
interesting.
It's a way of understanding where you are,
exactly.
where you're at. And that's part of the other thing that I do with the celestial seed astrology is that it's very well tied into historically how astrology was used, because astrology has always been used for maritime navigation throughout the centuries.
Correct.
And truly, like I said, finding out where we're at, not just in the cosmos, but the existential question of who am I and where am I?
Right.
That's what it answers. And I think it can really, like I said, if you know how to figure out the quirks and tease it apart and not just have everything butted up against everything and just becoming a big blur, it can really give you a sense of clarity about that. And I think that's where, like I said, I actually do make maps that you can actually read as opposed to just the radar charts, which are usually what you usually get with most astrology.
And
mine are actually illuminated.
Just for
They're illustrated, and I draw you a picture.
Yeah, just for our listeners, I also wanted to say that these maps or these charts that Jeff does are beautiful, beautiful enough to be framed. I think they're, and I would think that they would be a beautiful gift to like new parents or a new baby or a wedding present or, a birthday present.
They do make darn fine birthday gifts. And yeah, weddings can also be done. So the day that you choose to be married is also a chart for how your marriage is going to work and how it's going to come out. Because that's what you present to the world. That's the image you're presenting to the world, and it can be calculated in a chart.
And I think that's called horary. Am I correct that that's horary astrology, or is that just for crime? That's
correct. I've heard it called horary and horary, which is spelled with an H. But it's like tarot is, you don't pronounce the T. Horary astrology can be done that way as well. So I've heard it called both.
Okay.
So yes, I consider both pronunciations valid.
Okay.
Depends on where you're from.
Hey, listen, we have Julie on the line. Hey, Julie, how you doing?
Hi,
say hi to Mary Jo and Jeff. This is Julie Martini, our West Coast producer.
Hi, everyone.
Julie.
Oh, this is fun. I am so thrilled. Everyone's on right now. So, Julie, we are talking about astrology. And do you have any astrological questions that you'd like to ask Jeff? Or do you have any news for us based on the West Coast whale watching?
Well, I guess my astrological question is, how are people born in July, specifically July 10th, with people born at the end of January? Those signs, how do they match up in terms of long-term compatibility?
Sun sign?
So you're July 10th, which makes you a Cancer.
Well, no, that's
I'd like to
that's
follow.
someone that's a very dear friend of mine, and my birthday is actually January 30th. I'm Aquarian.
Okay. That sun sign wise doesn't work.
But you never
Don't
know
worry.
because we have to look at what your moon signs are because sometimes that can be
Like I
very.
said, that's the thing. That's the thing. That's why astrology is a pain in the butt for people who only know a little bit about it. And like you said, the moon can have a lot to do with it. But what I think actually has even more to do with it is where you're born and where you keep each other's ruling planet in your chart.
Oh.
So, for instance, since you're an Aquarian, where does your partner or your significant other or whoever you're interested in keep their ferry boat, otherwise known as Uranus in my chart?
That's a good question. I'll have to find out.
A poem of
That's right.
enlightenment.
That's it, exactly. So, if you look at their chart, you're going to want to know where their Uranus is. No pun intended.
Not at all.
I
Not
know.
at all.
I know.
So, yeah. You know how they are with those planets. I'm
JK.
sorry. We always like to take a crack at Uranus. My apologies.
Yep.
But anyway,
Whatever gets us
it's so
going.
much fun. But that's how you'll relate to the Cancer, who normally a Cancer is considered very feeling. They kind of think about their feelings and plod along with how they feel about things, and they can be moody. But that doesn't mean that you can't also relate to them in the sense of where you're located. Do you know what time you were born?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh, yeah.
And what time were you born?
I believe 5:30 in the morning, but I'd have to double check.
I have her chart.
Aha. You poor
Wait.
thing. 5:30 in the morning. If that's correct, then you probably live in the sacrifice seas, you poor thing.
Well, that would be very true.
Which means that you are good for everyone but yourself, because you live in the Bay of Saints.
Oh, yeah. You do
There
give
you
a
go.
lot to other people, Julie.
Right.
You're
I know. I
a
have to
very
learn how to
giving
be more
person.
selfish here.
Yeah.
Well, it can be good and bad, obviously, because don't worry, I live there too. I get it. That's why I warned you. We have a tendency to be martyrs and do more than we have to give. In other words, that's what we do. We give of ourselves. And, you can be a very giving person. Obviously, people can take advantage of that. And that's where you also try to figure out, okay, what is it that you need so that you don't burn yourself out? And in that regard, you want to look to your own moon sign, which is your dock. That's where you get your supplies. That's what feeds you. So if you know what your moon sign's in, then you know what sustains you. That's what the dock does. So your supply line and all that kind of stuff. So to keep yourself from burning out, figure out what it is that you need to keep going.
I think she's found him.
There we go. Good thing. Well, a Cancerian, of course, is ruled by the moon. So maybe he supplies you somehow, and he may even have his moon in Aquarius, which would make it a very good match.
See?
Yeah. Sun sign. Yes, exactly. We're talking about the moon. That's the thing. And Carl Jung was actually very famously known as both a psychologist and an astrologer and mystic. And he did actually a whole lot of charts of couples. And what he found most often was that they shared the moon in each other's sign. So, like you're an Aquarius, you'll have the moon in Cancer for his sign, and he'll have the moon in Aquarius for yours. That may or may not be the case, but that would usually represent or indicate that you have feelings for each other, and that you can sustain each other, and that you feel comfortable as well with each other, because that's what the moon brings, is a sense of comfort.
And then the same thing, with the Venus and the Mars, depending on that combination. Some people can hit it off.
That's a passionate relationship, definitely.
But sometimes that has a lot to do with the success of a relationship or the demise.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things. When I look at an astrological chart, I look at it like a thumbprint or your social security number. There's a uniqueness to it. The first few numbers, like our slower moving planets, are like our first numbers. And then when you get to the end of your social security number, all the numbers really start changing. And that, I think, has to do with your sun, your moon, your Mercury and your Venus and Mars, because I think those are your personal planets.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, what I try to do with those is, you know me, I'm not really into abstracts. I'm more into concretes. I like to see ships, not numbers.
Oh, right.
Numbers bother me because they can be changed. You see, here's the thing. If you're looking at numbers, all you have to do is change your base, and you've got a whole new set of measurements, even if it's the same thing that you're looking at. So numbers are changeable. They're two variables for me. But I know what a ship is. So I know that the moon is the dock. I know that Venus is your sailboat, because that's your partnership, don't you know? It's where you take someone on a date. That's what Venus is all about, the goddess of love. And then you have Mars, of course, which is your battleship. And, of course, that makes everybody think, oh, that's where you go to war and have arguments. Well, that's actually true, but the reason why you would ever go to war is for what one thing, and that is the only thing worth fighting for. Does anybody know what that is?
It should be something noble.
Love?
I like that. I like love, I like nobility, and all of those have the thing that really is
honor,
what we're fighting for. Virtue.
Virtue.
Exactly. And that can be different for each person. That's why you want to know where your Mars is and where the other person's Mars is. So if they have their Mars in your sign, they consider you virtuous. You see how that works?
Oh, yeah.
So that's how that works with the lovers of the chart, otherwise known as Mars and Venus. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So Venus, in fact, I just started writing about that. Venus, like I said, represents your partnerships, represents in your chart wherever Venus is located. Let me put it this way: each ship has a name, a special name for itself. Venus's name is assets, because wherever Venus is, it's your little, like I said, it's your little sailboat, and the name of the sailboat is assets. So it's where anywhere the sailboat is the sailboat represents that's a plus in your life. Okay, it's an asset. It's always a plus. Wherever Mars is, that's the thing you're willing to defend to the death, to the teeth, because that's the thing of virtue, and you have to defend virtue, of course. So that's why you put your battleship there. And, it's like if anybody offends that virtue, you're going to fight for it. You're going to protect it. You're going to take care of it. That's why you have a battleship there.
Great. My Mars, my Mars is in Virgo.
There you go.
I'm fighting for
things like your health.
Yep.
And you can see the virtue in healers and healing and good diet. All those kinds of things have a virtue for you.
Yes.
Also things that are of a domestic sort of thing, like small animals you would defend, or your family dog is considered something virtuous, and you love that creature, right?
Yeah.
So that is what you're willing to defend with your very life. You'll fight for that. Those are all things that are valuable to you. So, do we know where anybody else's Mars is here and what their virtue is? Anybody want to venture?
Mary Jo, I think her Mars is in Sagittarius.
Okay, so the things that you would consider valuable and worth fighting for is knowledge and wisdom.
That's true. Wouldn't you say that?
So, yes.
Yeah.
So
Susan,
wisdom and
where's
knowledge are worth fighting for, that kind of thing.
Julie's Venus and Mars, her Mars is conjunct Saturn in Capricorn, and her Venus is in Capricorn in the 8th house.
Okay, so that she would partner up with Capricorns, and that would be a solicitous relationship. Is if she'd probably go out on a date with Capricorn because Venus is there, that kind of thing. So anywhere you have your sailboat, that's the kind of person you're going to be happy to go out with and enjoy them, and like I said, go out on a date, take them out for a sail, that kind of thing. If you have the Mars there, if the Mars is also in Capricorn, then you consider your economics and your career worth fighting for. That kind of thing.
I'm starting to hear the music. I can't believe it's been an hour, And we have to
Amazing.
wrap it up. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I want to thank Julie and Mary Jo for being my dearest sisters and being there for me, and Jeff, and I want to thank Jessica, but most of all I want to thank Jeff for just being a wise teacher. Thank
Aw.
you. Love you. See you.